Hello, my name is Ben Barr, CEO of We Are Unity, and welcome to Catalyst Conversations. I've got the privilege of being joined by CEO and Chair of Pernod Ricard today, Brian Fry. Brian, thanks for joining us and taking the time.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Now, Brian, I've got to say, you work and provide a product that most Australians are particularly passionate about. So it begs the question: what's your winning drop to take to a dinner party?
Oh, it's a good question. It's a tough one. I think when you go to a dinner party, the first thing is if you're taking a bottle you want opened, then you might want to check it would be opened when you get there, because the host may have already organised something. So always take something that you're not going to be disappointed if it doesn't get opened. But if you want a guaranteed wine to take that people will open, always take a bottle of champagne.
Everybody knows Pernod Ricard. It's a loved house of brands. I'd like to start by perhaps asking you about the things we don't know. Tell us something we don't know about the Pernod Ricard business.
Yeah, I suppose what we don't know about Pernod Ricard business is actually that Pernod and Ricard were two family companies that started in France, and in fact they were bitter competitors for many, many years before actually getting together and realizing that together they could be stronger outside of France than inside.
What is culture for you as a CEO, and what role does it play in the way that your business performs?
My personal view is if you have a culture that is also then connected to what is, hopefully a compelling, engaging and empowering strategy, then business performance should follow.
Yeah. And in the context of culture, behaviorally, what are some of the key behaviors that you've seen change over the past 8 weeks in your organization?
There's been a quality in its speed of decision making that has surprised me a bit. We've actually been able to pump through some projects and decisions, and we're at pace, which is quite good, to be honest. So I probably need to think about how we keep hold of that moving forward.
Yeah, pace is good. Decision making is good. It's certainly something that we've heard mentioned before. I think the novelty of the VC is perhaps starting to wear off, and people are looking to get to decisions a little bit quicker than they may have in the real physical world, I suppose. So are we seeing some positives come out the current climate?
I think the positive we'll see is that for our business, for probably the last 10 years, we've been talking about e-commerce coming. And I think right now is that e-commerce has been coming, but maybe the consumer hasn't been there yet and comfortable enough with it. And there's no doubt that at the moment, there's definitely a big move by consumers to actually embrace e-commerce, not just for wine, spirits and champagne, but actually for many, many products.
Absolutely. And how's your team responding? Is it driving a new level of innovation and rethinking within the business?
The biggest issue was we had to reconfigure our operations. So we're in the middle of harvest in vintage in Australia and New Zealand. How do you actually reconfigure your entire winemaking chain when in the context of social distancing?
Is there anything particularly you've learned about your employees' well-being over the past 10 weeks?
Looking after the well-being of employees is key. It's making sure that we can set it up so when people come in, we can guarantee a certain level of safety, but also, in trying to be as best as possible to keep a decent, balanced and convivial, working environment in the office, which is key.
Yeah, and you mentioned convivial and conviviality. I believe they're parts of your purpose, or they are your purpose as an organisation.
Yeah, so our global vision is in French, it's Créateur du Convivialité, and so that means basically our purpose and mission is to use our brands and people to spread conviviality around the world. But what's been super impressive is how a lot of people, particularly in our organisation, but also even with our competitors, have actually lent in and found new ways to drive conviviality from a virtual perspective.
From a global perspective, what's your vision for the Pernod Ricard business? Where do you want to take it?
Yeah, so my part of the Pernod Ricard business is I'm responsible for our global wine business. So my vision is to be and we simply say we just want to be first in glass. And the simple thing is, if our wines are chosen ahead of others by consumers to pour into their glass first and into the glass of others, then we're on track to have the most valuable wine business in the world.
Let's hope the glasses stay full. And look, from a prioritization perspective, you mentioned e-commerce earlier, which I'm assuming gets you more directly to the consumer. Is that right?
If you want to look at it in its purest form, is that it gives you the opportunity to shop wherever you are. So you don't have to be in the store. That's probably the key thing for me with e-commerce, is it gives you the chance with this thing to actually, or your laptop or your iPad, to shop wherever you want. And more importantly, then to actually decide how you want it to be delivered to you.
Gosh, it certainly sounds like, looking in from the outside, looks like quite a simple industry, but actually when you think about the complexities, listening to you, the different facets, the different touch points, how important to you as a CEO is data? A lot of people are talking more about data literacy, the ability to use data and balanced out versus, gut-based decisions. How do you balance the two?
I think that the key thing for me is, first and foremost, is what's the question you're trying to answer? And that data is supposed to answer for you. So, and then when you have the right question, then you actually can compile the data for the most accurate answer. And then, of course, as you start to answer those questions, then you also start to learn other things from that data. And but just to amass data for the sake of amassing data, I mean, we started that. That's a journey we did, a few years ago, where we had to hit a certain KPI for the amount of data we had. We hit the KPI. Did we actually make any better decisions? Not really.
It's a fair point, and I think one that keeps getting raised over and over again is, how do you succinctly articulate the problem statement?
Yes.
So that you're actually clear on what you're using it for. And speaking of problem statements, this is one that the team asked me to ask you, which was, if you're CEO and chair, does it mean that you report to yourself?
No, not the case. So, no, I report to the head of global business development out of Paris, and I sit on the executive committee for Pernod Ricard globally. So, there's 15 of us. So, no, I definitely don't report to myself, but I do have basically statutory responsibility for all of our ANZ business and also our wine business in Spain and the US.
Big remit, and really appreciate you taking the time to share some of your learnings and insights. Before I let you go, because I think we're almost out of time, the one question that I always tend to finish up on is, if you could travel back in time and visit yourself on day one of this job, what advice would you give yourself?
But most importantly, invest time to look outside your company to search for ideas and inspiration. So I think quite often when you get into your first CEO role, you just become so consumed with the business you're in that, I sort of talk about, you've got to step back and actually stand up and look outside the trench a bit to see what else is going on, to try and actually refresh yourself, get some ideas and inspiration that you can bring back into the business to help it move forward. So that's what I would say.
It's a wonderful perspective, actually. So bringing more external provocation into your people. And is the Pernod Ricard business open to that perspective now that you?
Absolutely, absolutely. And what I do now with my management team is, as part of their objectives, they have to do one thing a year that they invest in themselves that has to be outside of our business and preferably our industry. And even if they can't exactly tell me what it's about in terms of driving value for the business, I know that in the end they're actually growing their skill set, growing their mindset and learning, which is key. And I think it's, I just see the level of refreshment they get from that, and that in itself drives value back into the business.
It's a wonderful initiative. I'm sure they enjoy the opportunity to leverage that. That's fantastic and unique, because I don't think I've heard that before. So, Brian, thank you again.
No problem.
For joining us today. It's a pleasure to to hear and learn a little bit more about you and the organisation.
No worries, absolutely pleasure.